He folds his laundry, alone, hangs his shirts in silence, eats dinner by the window, one chair, one plate, and people think he's lonely. But they don't see the courtroom. They don't hear the arguments replaying in his head. They don't know what he gave up, just to get this peace. These are 13 silent reasons divorced men don't go back. Not to marriage, not to what broke them. Comment if you chose peace over repair. I still believe in love, just not the same way. He's tired of explaining himself. He spent years trying to be understood, only to be misread. He explained his silence. His long drives helped him process. He needs space after a long day. He tried to translate himself, not because he was hiding anything, but because so few people ever took the time to understand how men like him operate. He's not loud, not reactive, not always full of words. But that never meant he was cold or disconnected. It meant he was thoughtful, private, reflective. Still, in past relationships, silence was met with suspicion. Peace was mistaken for distance, and calm was interpreted as apathy. He found himself constantly explaining things that shouldn't require a defense. Why does he need a quiet night instead of going out? Why does he process emotions inwardly instead of venting them loudly? Why he withdrew, not to punish, but to heal. Over time, that explanation became exhausting, not just because it took energy, but because it felt like being on trial for simply being himself. Now, he doesn't want to manage anyone's discomfort. He doesn't want to reassure someone who misreads his stillness as retreat. He doesn't want to be a walking translation guide for his soul. He just wants to be safe, being himself, and in a world that keeps demanding men open up while punishing them when they do. He's learned, the safest place isn't in someone else's understanding, it's in his quiet self-respect. He doesn't want to risk his freedom again. The first time he loved, it felt like freedom, the freedom to build, to trust, to grow beside someone. But somewhere along the way, that freedom became containment. The shared routines turned into rules. The compromises became one-sided. The we became a constant negotiation, until the man he used to be got lost in the mix. He stopped riding motorcycles, stopped playing guitar late into the night, stopped seeing friends who didn't fit the dynamic. Little by little, he gave up parts of himself, not out of resentment, but because love asked it of him, and he wanted love to work. But now that he's rebuilt that freedom, he knows what it's worth. Waking up without expectation, drinking coffee in peace, making decisions without needing approval, having space, real, uninterrupted space to think, to feel, to be. That kind of freedom isn't rebellion. It's recovery. And now that he has it, he's not giving it away easily, especially not to someone who sees freedom as a threat instead of a gift. He's not afraid of commitment. He's afraid of becoming invisible again. Because once you lose yourself, trying to keep someone else happy, you realize freedom isn't just about space. It's about identity. And now that he's reclaimed his identity, he'll protect it like it's sacred. Because it is. He remembers the courtroom too well. The heartbreak wasn't the worst part. The courtroom was. What began with vows ended with paperwork, with deadlines, with lawyers speaking for him, and silence speaking louder from the one he once held close. He remembers sitting in that cold room, hearing her version of the story through legal language. He remembers being called things that didn't reflect the years of loyalty, effort, and showing up. He remembers how quickly ours became mine and yours. How the house, the accounts, the memories all became evidence. He remembers his children being placed between him and the woman he once loved. He remembers the mediation meetings, the tension, the ache of not being trusted, and most of all, he remembers how no one really cared about the truth, only the process. By the end, it wasn't about right or wrong. It was about survival. And he survived. But he walked out changed. Not bitter, not angry, just no longer naive. Now, when someone speaks of marriage again, he doesn't picture a wedding. He pictures a courtroom, not because he's dwelling on the past, but because he paid a price most people never see. And he knows, some lessons don't make you fearful, they make you careful. And this one, it made him immune to romantic idealism, because he learned the hard way. Sometimes, I do, turns into, I'm done, faster than you think. He still has scars, and they don't show. Not every wound bleeds. Some carve themselves into the soft places of a man, where no one can see them, but everything he does is shaped by them. There was a time he opened up. He spoke his fears, shared his childhood, told the truth about what hurt him, and she listened at first, until one day she used those truths to win an argument, threw his vulnerabilities back at him like weapons. Since then he's learned, some scars are not for display, they're for remembrance. He's not closed off. He's cautious. He doesn't withhold, he preserves. So when someone asks, "Why don't you open up more?" he doesn't know how to explain that his silence is not emptiness. It's self-defense. That every "I'm fine" is not avoidance, it's a boundary. And every pause before he speaks is him making sure it's safe. He walks softer now, listens more than he speaks. Not because he has nothing to say, but because he's learned how easily honesty can be mishandled. His scars taught him restraint. His restraint taught him clarity. And clarity taught him this: some people want your openness, but only if it doesn't make them uncomfortable. And for a man like him, silence is the safest form of self-respect. He values peace more than passion now. There was a time when passion thrilled him. Late nights, heated debates, wild laughter followed by wilder apologies. It felt alive, electric, addictive. But that kind of passion always came with a price. He remembers the emotional highs and the crashes after, the unpredictability, the eggshell mornings, the afternoons ruined by moods he didn't cause but still had to manage. Back then, he confused chaos for connection, intensity for intimacy, drama for depth. Now, he's traded fireworks for candlelight, chose gentle mornings over passionate storms. Peace once, something he thought was boring, has become his greatest treasure. He no longer wants to fight and call it love. He doesn't need someone to challenge him every day. He needs someone who doesn't make him flinch when the door closes. Because peace isn't dull. It's deliberate, it's rare, and it's earned. These days, he listens to silence like music, finds joy in mundane routines, smiles at quiet dinner. And if love ever returns, it must arrive gently, or not at all. Because after years of running toward flames, he finally realized warmth feels better than fire. He doesn't want to play emotional chess. There was a time when he played the game, waited hours to text back because she did first, held back compliments just to seem less eager, tried to read tone from half phrases, walked into conversations already strategizing his next move. It felt like chess, and he was always playing black, always reacting, always second to speak, second to feel, second to win. But what no one talks about is how exhausting that game becomes. He remembers relationships where vulnerability was punished, where expressing his needs was seen as weakness, where being honest made her say, "You're too much," and being reserved made her ask, "Do you even care?" He got tired of being tested, tired of decoding signals, tired of defending his heart while pretending not to care. Now, he doesn't play. He speaks clearly or not at all. He gives steadily or not at all. He walks toward peace, and if a woman responds with mind games or mixed messages, he walks away. Because a relationship should feel like a soft place to land, not a battlefield. He's not looking for an opponent. He's looking for a partner, someone who doesn't keep score, because they're already on the same team. He doesn't want to lose himself again. Marriage didn't just cost him time. It didn't just cost money. It cost him himself. He remembers the slow erosion, not dramatic, not obvious. It began with little compromises, not seeing his friends as often, skipping the gym because she needed help, not reading the books he loved because his tastes weren't shared. And then it got quieter. He stopped offering ideas at dinner, stopped suggesting road trips, stopped humming his favorite tunes in the kitchen. Somewhere between being a good man and being a good husband, it disappeared. It wasn't her fault entirely. He allowed it. He gave and gave, hoping to keep the peace. But the cost was too high. Now, he's found that man again. The one who stays up late painting miniatures, who takes long drives with old music, who eats when he's hungry and speaks when he has something real to say. And now that he has himself back, he won't risk losing him again, even for love. Because the man he fought to reclaim deserves a place where he doesn't have to shrink to belong. He's seen the red flags and now he believes them. He used to doubt himself, give people the benefit of the doubt, tell himself, everyone has flaws, or she's just having a rough day. He ignored the cold shoulder, justified the sarcastic jabs, overlooked the broken promises. Why? Because he wanted to believe in the best. Because he'd rather hope than be alone. But now he listens not to the excuses, but to the patterns. The way she interrupts, the way she jokes at his expense, the way she dismisses his silence, or punishes it. And the difference is clear. He no longer waits for things to get worse. One red flag? Enough. One disrespectful comment. He remembers how that grows. One attempt to gaslight him into thinking he's too sensitive. He walks. He doesn't argue. He doesn't explain. He doesn't negotiate with what he already knows to be danger. He's not paranoid. He's not bitter. He's just learned. A man who ignores the first warning sign is the same man who'll be explaining himself in therapy 5 years later. He's done with lessons. Now, he honors the signs. He doesn't want to raise anyone anymore. He raised kids, changed diapers, showed up at parent-teacher nights, stayed up through stomach bugs. He loved being a father, but he's done with being one to his partner. He remembers relationships where he had to regulate both his emotions and hers, where he was the one calming storms, initiating apologies, carrying the weight of both people's growth, where emotional labor wasn't shared, it was silently expected of him. He coached, he encouraged, he reassured. He made room for her insecurity, her volatility, her self-discovery, while his own needs sat quietly in the corner. And now, he wants a grown woman, not someone who needs a second childhood, not someone who demands attention but avoids accountability. He's not looking to teach someone how to communicate. He's looking for someone who already knows how, because at this point in life, he's not afraid of love. He's afraid of having to parent a partner while pretending it's romance. And if love feels like another full-time job, he'll take the peace of solitude over the burden of babysitting. Every time, he doesn't miss the feeling of walking on eggshells. He remembers it clearly. The tension in the air so thick, it changed the way he breathed. The hesitation before speaking, the way he rehearsed harmless sentences just to avoid being misunderstood. He used to ask himself, did I say that the wrong way? Will she take that personally? Should I apologize again? And even when things were calm on the surface, there was always an edge, like living with a ticking clock, waiting for the next emotional explosion. He doesn't miss that. Not for a second. He doesn't miss the long nights of silent treatment, the passive-aggressive sighs, the subtle punishments for saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. Now, his home is quiet, not just in volume but in energy. He moves through rooms without fear, speaks without decoding, laughs without bracing for the consequence. Some people call it lonely. But to him, it's peace, and it's priceless. Because when a man's nervous system learns what safety feels like, he'll never again confuse tension for love. He refuses to settle just to avoid being alone. There was a time he feared loneliness, the silence, the empty bed, the quiet dinners for one. So he stayed, in relationships that drained him, in rooms where he wasn't heard, in cycles that left him questioning his worth. He told himself, at least I'm not alone. But deep down, he knew. He was lonelier with her than he ever was on his own. Now, he sees settling as the greater risk. He no longer trades peace for proximity. He no longer accepts good enough out of fear. He'd rather eat dinner by himself than share a table with someone who only tolerates him. And when people ask, don't you miss having someone? He sometimes smiles, because they don't realize he has someone, he has himself, whole, present, at peace. And that's a company he'll never abandon again. He knows love doesn't always mean loyalty. Once upon a time, he believed the two were the same. Love meant loyalty. Loyalty meant forever. He gave her his heart and believed that meant she'd protect it. He showed up, stayed loyal, even when things got hard, even when she didn't. But now, he knows better. He's seen how love can speak beautifully while acting carelessly. How someone can say, I love you, and still betray you in silence. Still flirt with attention. Still disappear emotionally, even if they stay physically. He no longer equates strong feelings with strong foundations, because loyalty is a behavior, not a feeling. And when he looks back, what hurt wasn't just the betrayal, but the realization that love alone never guarantees protection. Now, if someone says they love him, he watches what they protect. Because the next time he lets someone close, it won't be because of words. It'll be because of actions that say, I'm with you, and I'll guard what matters. And until he sees that, he walks alone, quietly, with dignity. He finally trusts himself more than he trusts others. There was a time he needed reassurance, validation, a mirror to tell him who he was. He asked questions like, do you think I'm a good man? Am I too much? Am I enough? But those questions were dangerous, because the wrong person can shape your reflection into something you don't even recognize. He trusted too many outside voices, and for years, he molded himself to fit, to please, to keep peace. Now, he no longer chases clarity in someone else's approval. He finds it in his own stillness. He trusts the way he breathes when he's alone, the way his heart slows in solitude, the quiet voice that says, this is who you are, and you're finally safe. He doesn't need a partner to complete him. He's not looking for someone to tell him he's worthy. He already knows. And that inner knowing, that quiet, unshakable trust in himself, is something no ring, no relationship, no romance ever gave him. So if someone comes along, they better come correct. Because this time, he won't bend. He won't shrink. He won't silence himself to be understood. He trusts his gut now. And his gut says, peace is sacred, and love, if it doesn't honor that, can stay outside. No, he doesn't hate women. No, he's not bitter. He's just done gambling with what he rebuilt in silence. If you're a man who chose not to remarry, not because you failed, but because you finally understood your worth, leave a quiet comment below. I'm not angry. I'm just free.